This is going to be interactive today, so this is going to be a little bit more of a sort of a mastermind, but a lot of sharing. First thing I'm going to ask you to do, so this is your first participation piece, is if you just attended Family Reunion 2024, can you hit any reaction you would like? What I want to do is share some of the ahas that you took away. So there's two things I want to hear: an aha or ahas, and action items. So when I think of ahas and action items, the way I separate them is a lot of times when we go to these events, we get like nuggets, right? It's like that statement that somebody said at just the right time that hit us just the right way to be meaningful in the moment. That's kind of what I think of as the ahas. The action items are the brass tacks strategies. Like, what did I learn that I took away that I can implement in my business? Because my hope is by us having that dialogue, sharing, talking about how we're going to implement those action items, everybody who is not at Family Reunion is going to be able to take away some value, even though they weren't actually there. For anyone who is a guest from another company, if you have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about and you think I just had a barbecue with my family, Family Reunion is our national convention that happens every year. We have two major conventions as well as other events, but our two majors every year are Family Reunion and Mega Camp. We just got back from, I guess it was 5 days, 6 days, I don't know how long it was. In Las Vegas, there was about 16,000 of the most productive real estate agents in the entire industry. Yes, I said 16,000. It was actually somewhere between 16 and 17,000. Which I believe makes Family Reunion the largest real estate event in the industry. So that's pretty amazing in and of itself. We had people like Tony Robbins, Mel Robbins, his keynote speakers, plus a whole bunch of other amazing people. And then we had all of our breakouts that were panels of top agents sharing specifically what they're doing and doing really well to grow their business in what we know is an interesting market. So everybody who was at Family Reunion, this is what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to share a couple of ahas to kick us off, which is also going to give you a little bit of time to get primed and pull out your ahas and your action items, because I'm going to ask you guys. So as you guys know, we are always focused on one of four things: personal growth, business growth, profit, and wealth building. My guess is you're going to hear tidbits, ahas, and action items that fall into all of those buckets as we go through today and share what we took away from Family Reunion. Because at Family Reunion, there were different speakers, breakouts that touched on all of these different things. So I'm going to share a couple of I'm going to call these ahas. This one I thought was really important. This came from Tony Robbins. I heard this on a podcast a couple of weeks ago. We got the privilege of hearing it directly from Tony Robbins at Family Reunion. When I heard it on the podcast, I shared it with a small group of my agents at a class that was happening that day. And I think it's really important in the moment that we're in. So the concept of this is pretty simple. It is hard times create strong people. Strong people create good times. Good times create weak people. And weak people create hard times. You see the cycle? So here's what's really interesting. If you look at history, if you look at economics, if you look at life, you will see this pattern repeating over and over and over and over again, right? Too often in life, we're looking for easy, we're looking for soft, we're looking for comfortable. And the reality is that's not what builds us up to be strong people. It's the hardest times that make us the best version of ourselves. And when we show up as the best version of ourselves, we create good times. And the unfortunate thing is, if you look at history, the pattern is those good times then create weak people. People get comfortable, they get complacent, right? We're actually living through one of those cycles right now. Did we not go through one of the most challenging things most of us have ever experienced in the past 5 years? Is that a yes? I don't know, like a pandemic? Yeah, that's like a thing that I never thought I would see in my lifetime. If anyone ever told me I was going to end up locked in my house wearing a mask and like any of that, right? And I don't want to make light of any part of the pandemic, yet it was a thing that I don't know I ever thought I was going to experience in my life. But if you look at that, a lot of that was hard. It was hard emotionally, right? Unfortunately, a lot of people lost their lives. We were isolated. right? So mentally it was difficult, emotionally it was difficult, but what was our government's reaction to it? Somebody unmute. What did the government do?
Scared us to death.
They scared us to death. What else did they do?
Dropped interest rates.
Dropped interest rates. You're going down the path. What else did they do?
Make it easy to spend money.
Yes, right? They pumped, when this happened, they pumped the economy full of money. There were grants, there were tax credits, there were, I mean, you name it. They were coming out with, forgivable loans, and they just pumped cash into the economy. What they were trying to do is take the pain out of the moment, take the economical pain out of the moment. And in doing so, they infuse the entire economy with a massive amount of capital. Now, look at where we are right now. We went from rates that were sub 3 all the way up to 7, which, by the way, is far more normal. We all know that because we're in the industry, right? But then all of a sudden, the Fed is raising rates, raising rates, raising rates. Why does the Fed raise rates?
To combat inflation.
To combat inflation. You make things more expensive so people slow down on their spending, right? And that reins in inflation, except the problem this time, it was like a Mustang on the loose. No matter how many times they raised rates, everyone was just partying. We were like, whoa, like nobody cared. Everybody just kept spending, right? Now we're starting to feel the pain. The pain we're feeling is actually caused by the effort that the government went to in order to avoid pain during a very difficult time. That's just the reality, right? So if you look at history, again, economics, literal history, just look at life, you're going to see this pattern over and over again. How many of us have seen people who grew up in a challenging environment and they worked their asses off to build a very different life for themselves? And some of us, right, there's probably a ton of us on the screen right now. And then when we have kids, what do? We have this weird challenge of we want to give them a better life. Yet at the same time, we want them to appreciate what they have. We want them to have a work ethic. That's actually really hard to do. It's really hard to do. There are books written, there are studies, and there are books written about how wealth almost always skips a generation. And why does it skip a generation? Because of this. Like oftentimes, the parent in that family is a parent that grew up in hard. And that hard created a strong person who went out and did the work. And then they get the rewards of a more comfortable life, which they then provide to their children. And it is very hard to get the same kind of grind, the same kind of strength out of comfort that we get out of hard. So here's the reason I wanted to share this. Are we in a challenging market right now? Yeah, we are. Like, there's no reason to pretend we're not, right? We have less inventory than we've ever experienced, as far as I know, in the history of real estate. And that creates a challenge. You could argue we're in winter. This is a hard time. But the thing we have to remember, and I talked about this on one of the other webinars that we had, is we have to remember right now, the strong are going to be separated from the weak. There's going to be people who look up and go, this is just too damn hard, and they're going to get off the boat. And then there's going to be people who put their head down, do the work, understand that it's going to be delayed gratification, but they are going to become a better version of themselves in the process. And when the market does change, which it always does, there's no such thing as a permanent market. They ebb and they flow. When we come out of this market, those people who stayed in the hard are coming, they're going to develop a level of strength that when they come out, they're going to dominate the market. And we've seen it in past declines, right? This is just what happens. The weak goes and looks for easy, and the strong lean into the hard. And when things come back, they're there and they are stronger than they've ever been, right? So I thought that whole message was really important for the time that we're in, right? There's a saying, and it might be biblical, so if anybody wants to correct my quote here, but it's something like, stop asking for it to be easier and ask to be stronger. It's something along those lines, right? And I think that's a really powerful thing. Almost everything we do that is worth doing is hard. And almost everything that is easy to do and is our impulse to do actually moves us backwards, right? That is the tricky world that we live in, right? It's the hard stuff that we want to either not do and or delay is what actually gives us an easy life long term. And it's the easy stuff that gives us a hard life, right? When I was in basic training, I used to have a drill sergeant. He loved harassing me. For whatever reason, he picked me out of the crowd and he loved harassing me. And you know how they do their little, like, you got your ruck mark chants and all that stuff. But he used to follow me around all the time. And he'd go, Erdmann, takes a hard man to live a soft life, Erdmann. And I would say, drill sergeant, that doesn't even make sense. He'd go, that's because you're stupid, Erdmann. Roger that, drill sergeant. But I never forgot that quote. He used to say it to me all the time, all the time. It takes a hard man to live a soft life. It takes a hard man to live a soft life. And I never forgot what he said, but I was probably in my 30s by the time it registered. Like, what was he talking about? Because I would literally say to him, drill sergeant, that doesn't make any sense. And that was his answer. That's because you're dumb, Erdmann. Roger that. And the reality is today I understand it, but I had to make it from my 20s to my 30s before that made any sense. So I thought that was really important. I think it's powerful. And again, if you look at history, you look at the economy, you look at people's lives, you see this pattern over and over and over again. So just decide, which one are you? Are you the person who's going to ask for easy, or are you the person who's going to embrace hard and become strong in the process? The other piece, so here's what I would ask. So we had Tony Robbins and then we had Mel Robbins. So Tony Robbins went through that cycle that we go through. Mel Robbins did a great presentation, which I'm going to be super honest. I was like, how is she going to do an entire presentation on 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? And she nailed it. She did an amazing presentation. But one of the slides she put up was this year, and she just asked everybody in the crowd to fill in the blank. Right? Most of us spend a good amount of time doing business planning for the year, GPSs, 411s, all those things. I would encourage you to fill in the blank here, right? That's your detailed plan. But at the end of the day, what's the one thing? Like this year, I what? I will. What is it that you will do above all other things this year that matters the most? So I would encourage you to just write that down and fill in the blank. This year, and you fill in the blank. It's going to be different for everybody. Last piece I'm going to share, and then you guys should be primed with your questions. So as soon as I cover this, I'm going to ask you to throw your hands up and we're going to start pulling, again, ahas and action items. So focus. This was also Tony Robbins. What he talked about, focus is what you focus on is what you will feel. So one of the things he said is we tend to think of the thing that happened as the experience, and that's actually completely inaccurate. It's how we look at the experience, right? So this thing happened, right? And then we feel this way about it. It's the feeling that we attach to it is the thing. It's not, can we agree that we can both go to a party and have an entirely different experience? We can go to a sporting event and have an entirely different experience, right? We can engage with a person, just a human, and walk away and we just had an entirely different experience. We can watch a TV show, a movie, go see a comedian, right? You can just keep going and going and going. Everybody walks away with a completely different experience, even though the thing was exactly the same. It's what we focused on, right? So focus is what you focus on, you will feel. Meaning, what meaning did we attach to the event? Right? Same kind of idea. Right? Things can happen and we can attach a meaning to it. Somebody did something to us that we didn't appreciate. We can make that person a jerk. We can ask ourselves, what did I do to cause them to respond to me that way? Right? It's just all about the meaning that we attach to things. Right? In this market, when the market's challenging, we can attach meaning. Why is it always so hard for me? Why is my timing always so bad? If that's, or we can look at it and say, this is awesome because I know I can weather this and I know the majority can't. I'm going to come out on top. We're just assigning a different meaning to the same experience. And the last was action. What will you actually do? So he broke focus down into those three things. Focus is what you actually feel. Meaning, what do you attach to it? And third, what are you actually going to do? So those were my ahas that I took away. And now everybody should be primed. So you're at family reunion. Again, I'm looking for ahas. That is the statement, the nugget that hit you the right way at the right time. and or your action items. What is the brass tacks tactical thing that you took away that you're going to implement in your business? Dan Preston, you're the first man with your Mickey Mouse hand up.
Hello.
What's happening, sir?
So a couple of things. First was a session on lead gen with, I think it was Jason Abrams that I was in with.
Yeah.
And nothing I haven't heard before necessarily, but just getting creative with it. And I thought one cool nugget was, I don't know how much I can use it in Vermont, but they were talking about making dinner reservations at like 5 or 6 places that are super hard to get into, like 6 weeks away, and then just calling somebody and giving them away, and it's free.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a cool nugget. I think the
So I gotta give a little plug. I'm pretty sure Jason got that from David Voorhees.
Okay.
So there's a restaurant called Red Ash in Austin, Texas, which has become massively popular and it's borderline impossible to get in. So he does exactly that. He books it out like way in advance. And then he just either gives them away or invites people that he wants to spend time at that restaurant because most people can't get in. I love that.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that, so that was cool.
Yep.
The just value proposition and elevator pitch. I think I got to do better at that. I think take for granted some of the business I do get. I do have a ton of SOI and referral business, so it kind of comes to me warm, and I just get to run with it. So I think I need to do a little bit better at the elevator pitch scenario.
Yeah, I think it was who's was it Rory who's the brand builder guy?
Yeah, Rory Vaden.
Rory Vaden, thank you. I think him and Tony touched on it.
Yeah.
And I think the way Rory put it was if you can't articulate your value, how do you expect your clients to understand your value?
Right.
I had that one written down too. I thought that was powerful.
Yeah, so we talked about that as a team this week too. And then I just thought it was cool hearing more about homes.com. I've never really looked into them before. So I think it's pretty wild the amount of money that they're pumping into their marketing and taking on Zillow. And I'm kind of excited to see how that rolls out.
You know what was super ironic about that? I went back to my hotel room after that presentation, and what do you think was on the television? That shame on me, I left my TV on when I left. It's a homes.com commercial.
Yep.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, there he is. Now, I'm going to be careful what I say here, but all of us have to keep an eye on that. And I would argue keep an eye on it with a little bit of trepidation, if you will. Right? They definitely have the ability to come in and disrupt Zillow. We all know Zillow started out as a, as estimate. And we all know that was just a Trojan horse that led to, once they got the eyeballs, then it was selling those eyeballs back to us for a marketing fee. And then when that wasn't lucrative enough, it turned to a referral fee. Now there's rumors of that referral fee going all the way to like 50%, but that number is ticked up and up and up. We always got to be a little bit cautious when somebody other than us is building a moat around the consumer, right? So there's a weird balance of, participating to be present where the eyeballs are, yet also engaging in those relationships at a level that you're still keeping them in your moat, if that makes sense. Yeah, but it is going to be interesting to watch that battle.
Yeah, those are my top ones. That's all I got.
Awesome. In no particular order, I'm going to go Lisa Antrim.
Hey everyone, happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
So for me, kind of piggybacking on what you said, Matt, the thing that stuck with me is to just keep it simple, and things are simple, but not necessarily easy. And there's a whole bunch of things that we all know that we should be doing that we just don't do for whatever reason. So for me, that's kind of stuck in my head, and I've done just little things like usually when I'm working from home, I'm in the living room, have the TV on, but I decided, my son's away at college, I'm going to make his room my office and really just focus on what I have to do and have the little sayings around to kind of motivate me and to just really, really be focused. And, when you time block, it seems like 2 hours in your head is a really long time, but then I'm like, okay, 1 hour is basically like maybe 10 calls. So it's really not that much. And then another nugget that I got as well from Mel and from one of the breakouts is that we build up so many things in our head that really don't make any sense.
Yeah.
For me, when she was talking about the 5-4-3-2-1 rule and going to the gym. And what really struck a chord with me was when she said, you know, we all know we should get up and go to the gym, which I was religious about doing. Then something happened in my personal life that kind of took me away from that. So getting back to reality, it's like, I didn't really sleep that good last night. Bed's nice and warm. It's too cold. And instead of just getting up like I used to. And so little things like that just is really getting in the habit. And then nobody has ever said, I wish I didn't go to the gym today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the other little nugget that I got too was I had gone to a door knocking breakout session. I can't remember the guy's name.
California, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's always something that I wanted to do, but I build up all this stuff in my head. Nobody's ever slammed a door in my face, but I've probably done it once or twice and maybe went to 4 houses and then called it a day. So just some of the little strategies that he was talking about, just, you know, keep it simple. Hey, I just sold the house down the street. Do you know anybody that might be thinking of selling? And just, you know, write their number down and leave and then just follow up. So that's something that I made the decision that I'm going to do because I have an open house this weekend and I have one that just sold. So that's my goal. So it's kind of just for me anyway, kind of got me re-energized. And the camaraderie as well is really, really nice. I think, at least for me, sometimes as realtors, we tend to kind of be in our own little bubble and just doing what we need to do. Like I'm hardly in the office or whatever. But the connection with everybody else was really nice for me.
I love that. So there's a couple of things there. Talking about like, you know, the whole gym and all those different things that we make bigger in our head. Like when Mel Robbins brought that girl up on stage. So for those of you who weren't there, Mel Robbins, she was talking about how we come up with all these reasons not to do things. And as we add more reasons and more time in between, and we spend all this time thinking about it rather than just doing it, and it gets bigger and bigger than it really is. And she walked around the crowd and she basically said she was going to pull somebody out of the crowd to do an exercise. You know, so typical, you got people like jumping around, waving like me. And she was like, for the record, if you're one of those people jumping around right now, that's not who I'm looking for. I'm looking for the person who is shaking, is sweating, is borderline in tears. And she found that human. And she pulled that human up in front of 16,000 people. And this woman was legitimately trembling. And she had 3 envelopes. And she said, you're going to play a game with me. You're going to open all 3 envelopes, but you have to do whatever it says inside the envelope. And that first envelope, she couldn't open it. She was shaking so bad. Like literally could not open the envelope because she could not steady her hands enough. By the time she got to the 3rd envelope, she was on stage in front of 16,000 people and she was laughing. Like, and the whole point of it was, you know, what was your stress level when I first stepped in front of you and you suddenly thought, oh no, she might pick me. Scale of 1 to 10, she said 12. By the time she got off stage, she was like, literally said she was a 0. But it was just a really good example of how you build things up in your head and you make things so much worse than they really are. And then that agent that you talked about, Gary Keller has mentioned him multiple times. He is in Gary's top 200.
Oh, wow.
And his entire business model is that. He door knocks his farm every day. I forget the exact numbers. He works something like 250 days a week. The rest he's traveling and he door knocks every single day. Gary just mentioned him. Being in his top 200, he approached him one day and he said, Gary asked him, why are you so quiet in these rooms? And he said, I don't feel like I have anything to add. My business is so simple. I don't have all these complicated things. And Gary said, the funny thing about that is I know whose businesses make the most money. And he makes more money than almost everybody in that room. And his business is that simple.
Right.
He door knocks his farm area every day. Right. There's a million ways to do it, and it does not have to be complicated. Jen Feynman, you are the next person on The Price is Right.
Hey, come on down. So I'm going to give you one quote from Mel and one quote from Tony. Mel's is goals and dreams happen by choice, not chance. And Tony Robbins, 80% of success is mindset, 20% is strategy.
Yeah.
Who we are and how we present ourselves every day and how we feel about ourselves makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
My biggest thing to implement is right now it's just a dump of notes. However, I sat in on one of Phil M. Jones's sessions and
He's so
asked
good.
the right questions
Yeah.
with a seller.
Yeah.
We all go into our seller appointments and sometimes we just want to tell them what to do and how to do it. And looking at it a little bit differently and giving them the opportunity to self-discover builds a totally different relationship.
100%. Yeah. That's one of the things, and Jen, I know you know this. If you go through MAPS Coaching's Red Shirt program, the vast majority of what you do is write questions. They make you write questions endlessly. They give you a fact, they make you turn it into a question. They give you a statement, they make you turn it into a question. They make you role play back and forth and have conversations, but you're only allowed to ask questions. Like they drill that skill of being able to turn whatever's coming out of your mouth into a question. And it's hard at first. It's hard. Yet when you start doing it, you realize you have a very different conversation.
And I'll take that a step further to be open-ended questions so that the person on the other side is not just giving you a yes or a no or a this is the date I want to move.
Yeah, love that. Phil Jones too had one of my favorite quotes. I have it written down. I want to say it was sales is nothing more than a transfer of enthusiasm. I thought that was really smart. Sales is nothing more than a transfer of enthusiasm. That's a fun way to look at sales. Yeah. Love it. Awesome. Thank you, Jen. Bruce, what do you got, man?
Hey, Matt, nice meeting you. I'm a newbie to the group here.
Welcome.
Yeah. Couple things. This is not what I was going to talk about, but I'm just kind of picking up on what was discussed before about head stuff. And I was listening to some of my favorite talkers. I don't know if any of you know these names, Tara Brach and Jonathan Frost, but these are spiritual teachers per se. They teach meditation. And one of the things that they said was very interesting, that meditation builds the resilience to deal with these issues.
Yeah.
And for those who meditate, the more you practice this, the more the mind is able to deal with this stuff in our head.
Yeah.
And it's just a practice. We have the same thoughts every day. It's just how we deal with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure who said this, but what I was going to talk about, one of the ahas that I got, I don't know if it was Tony, and it was under marketing. He said, get into your customer's heart. Get into your actions, not your words. Remove the trash. Basically, what can I do?
Yeah.
Just focus on that, and you get rid of the head stuff.
Yeah. That message showed up in different words a million different times.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times we'll say come from contribution, and that can sound airy-fairy, yet at the end of the day, like, who are the people that you want to engage with? The people who engage with you on a very natural, genuine way and come from contribution. But it's the people who want to be helpful, want to learn more about you. Like, those are the people you tend to gravitate towards. Right. So
I think less concerned about the outcome, because the outcome will come.
Exactly.
Regardless.
Love that. So the Glastonbury room, and I think it's Lucy Cordero in the room who has a comment.
Hi, we're over in Wallingford with Rosemary.
Hey. Oh, Wallingford, my bad.
Hi, Rosemary here. I could teach an entire week of family reunion classes based on things I learned at family reunion. I'm gonna be as short as I possibly can, but I'll note a few really key things. It was worth the trip in spades. I would have paid triple for it and not even felt guilty about it. And there were 3 particular connections I made that I felt are so incredibly valuable that they were worth every watered down $19 drink I purchased on the trip.
Which, by the way, was a lot of.
Yeah, it was a lot.
No judgment.
Oh, that's okay. I was very due. I haven't had fun like that in a long time. But what I'll say is there was a bunch of things that reiterated themselves during all of the different panels and breakouts that I went to, on top of Tony Robbins, and we were talking a lot about patterns. And when I noticed patterns, and no matter which panel I was viewing, whether the topic was the same or not, a lot of the same things kept coming up, and a lot of more core values, priorities, and your health. And we were talking about like stress management came up a lot all over the place, whether it had to do with your families or with your business. And I think like there's just in one alone, there were breakaways of like, it's me before we. It's me before we with your family. It's you before we with your team of people that you're working with. If you're not doing those little things for yourself, and I know that we know this. Everyone said, listen, I'm the queen of knowing that self-care is important, and I do it just like that. I'm like, yeah, whatever, I'll do that when I die. Like, I don't care. But what I noticed in every single panel that I went to, while it wasn't said outright or part of the discussion, the 7, 8, 9 people that I was like, I want to emulate what they're doing in their business, they all had one thing in common. They all took time for their health about 3 times a week or more. And they didn't preach that, and that wasn't the point of the discussion, but I noticed the pattern in that. Then obviously Tony Robbins, a lot of it had to do with changing your nervous system and changing your focus and ways you can physically redirect your feelings and your emotions. And it kind of reiterated that. There's a core values worksheet that we have. If people haven't done or figured out what your core values are, I am happy to share it. I got it from KW Wellness Group. And a lot of what was discussed was you have to learn to say no. No is a full sentence. No is a full sentence. And if something doesn't align with your core values, it's a very easy no, and it should be. So when you're having a hard time during your day or with a client, or whether you should take on something or whether you should work in the gray, right? Because there's always opportunities for us to do that occasionally. Being able to go and look at, do these fit my goals? Did this client fit my goals? Do their needs fit my goals and values? If they don't, just being able to say no to that. And then putting the things that do match your core values as your guesses, but also in your calendar. So one woman would put joy activities and put them in a different color and look at her calendar. And if there wasn't enough yellow in her calendar, that means she wasn't doing enough things that aligned with her values. And she would go back into her calendar and be like, I haven't had anything that makes me feel good in 3 days. For the next 3 days, I'm going to do 30 minutes here, 20 minutes there, and 10 minutes there, and everyone else can F off. But if I don't put that joy and those things that fill my cup, and not even like health, but like core values of things that were important to them as part of there was so much good stuff. I can't even, I have 40 pages of notes that I would share in a minute. But if I miss a family reunion ever in the future, I'm be mad at myself. Straight up, like that's where I'm at. I'm now budgeting mega camp and family reunion in my budget every year. Particularly spend 50% more than you think you're gonna spend. So I'm spending 10 grand a year on this shit and I don't even care, excuse me. But it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. And
This is why Rosemary, by the way, goes into her room instead of her own Zoom, because she knows I can't mute her. Because then I would have to mute everybody in the room.
Rosemary.
Yes. Had a lot of fun. Anyway, it was great and everyone should go. And quite frankly, I don't care where you're at in your business. I think it's valuable at every phase. But I am super excited that I went at this phase of my business.
So it's interesting when you talk about the whole self-care piece and you're like, we all know we need to do it, yada, yada, yada. Like, why do you think that's such a hard thing for people to actually implement? So we know it and understand it, but why is it so hard for most of us to actually live that?
Jordan said, because we're programmed already. And one of the big keys that I got was your priorities don't penalize your business, but most people think that they do. And when you prioritize yourself, you feel like you're hurting other things in your life. You're hurting your kids, you're hurting your family, you're hurting their time. But it's like, so what? Miss bedtime, go and do this because you're going to be a wreck the next day if you don't. You know, like it's okay to have them. But they said, you think it's going to penalize something else. The reality is they enhance it. They don't hurt it. But until you allow yourself to give into it, you're gonna keep thinking, if I choose to do that, that means I'm not doing it. And that's not necessarily the truth once you put it in action.
Yeah. Like if you bring that back to Tony's model of focus, and it's about the meaning we assign to it. A lot of us assign self-care to being selfish. In order to do that, I'm not doing something else for somebody else. When the reality is, if you look at it differently, like, that's what I need to do so that I can be the best version of myself for everyone else. All of a sudden it has a different meaning, right? So too often we look at it as selfish when the reality is depending on how you frame it, it is selfless to take care of yourself because it's part of what you need to do in order to be able to show up at a high level for all the people in your life.
Can I continue to talk on that? I'm so sorry. You can tell me no.
What happened?
I said I have to add more to that, but you can tell me no. There was a
No.
woman who called out the panelists, who she's like, listen, I'm in support. I'm part of somebody's team. So there she was a transaction coordinator, inside sales, desk job person. She said, for the wellness, you guys are all the talent. You're the rainmakers. Everybody cares about your self-care, but how do you care about your teams? And part of the conversation then is everybody that was in the room that was a support staff actually agreed. I need my rainmaker and I need my team lead and I need my agents to do that because they are impatient, they are difficult to please, and they don't respect my boundaries when they're not respecting their own. So when they're okay, they're more patient, they're a better leader, and they respect their staff when they're off duty because nothing feels all that stressful and that urgent. So they all said, like, they give us our time, but we also make sure they get theirs, because if they don't, our team does not function the way that it should. And we've seen it in our numbers and productivity over time because we've tracked it. And I was like, that was also very interesting because you have a group of adults telling the adult who's supposed to pay their salaries, please go away and do what you need to do. So, because we're all better off when you take that time. And I thought that was also telling. So think of the way you lead your family. My kids may not be able to tell me to go and take some time for me, but they're gonna feel the repercussions if I don't. Whether I can recognize that, I didn't recognize that until kind of comparing, but.
There was,
Guys,
I don't remember who it was, but
so
one of the presenters, one of the keynotes said that the number one factor in success is energy. And if we're not taking care of ourselves, it's not possible to have energy, not for the long haul. Right? If we're not eating right, we're not sleeping, we're not getting exercise, we're not doing whatever it is that we do to recharge, eventually we run out of energy. And if energy is the most important factor to success, and success can translate into everything. That's success in business and relationships, success as a dad, a husband, all this stuff. It all requires energy. And to have the energy, we have to take care of ourselves. Otherwise, we show up tired and they get a depleted version of us instead. And unfortunately, where do we usually show up depleted? It's usually where we're most comfortable, which is at home, right? So if we're not managing our energy, it's usually our family who's going to get the most depleted version of us. So love that. Before I mute Rosemary specifically, love you. Is there anybody else in the room that wants to share before we go to the next person?
I guess I'll share. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep. Is that Lucy?
Yes, it's me, Lucy. I want to say that for me, the most mind-blowing part of the whole experience was the KW ADHD community, which is a newer community. I know a lot of us agents may suffer from ADHD, but my mindset going into that was like, oh, okay, this is like something that is limiting me from being able to do great things. And going into that panel and hearing these agents that have all these types of like disorders or disabilities, and turn it around and say, no, these are actually superpowers. Like, this is your superpower. The reason that the way that your brain works makes you successful because you're able to do all of these things at once. Not everyone thinks the same way that you do. And it's the fact that we have that community within all the other communities that we have. Like, I don't know of any other brokerage where we have such strong communities. So I thought that for me was impressive. And then I took away some life tools that I could actually implement into my business right away. Like, for example, for lead gen, I time block every day 2 hours of my day just to make calls. And out of those 2 hours, I'm probably productive for about 45 minutes of that time where I'm actually making the calls. So instead of putting in 2 hours of lead gen in my calendar, I now have 45 minutes in my calendar where it's just strictly for lead gen. Where, because you know, it's like time fills, what's the
Yeah.
full block?
Yeah,
I wish it's somewhere on here, but like, time fills the space allowed. So if I give myself 2 hours to F around, I'm going to like F around for 2 hours, but giving myself just that short time frame, I'm able to just hyper focus, get what I need to get done and move on with my day. Like, for example, today, I made my call, I set my appointment, I did my job today. I did that in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So like, that was like impressive for me. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's all I got.
That's awesome. I used to know somebody who had a chess timer next to them where they did their lead gen. So if the phone wasn't ringing or they weren't talking to someone, then the timer was off. And then they would click the timer as soon as the phone was ringing. If nobody answered, they'd leave a voicemail, stop the timer. But so they were tracking the time that they were actually dialing, actually speaking, and everything else got cut out so they could always see how much of that time was actually used for the activity. Love that. Which is funny, by the way, because a lot of people look at it, right? It's like back to the hard thing. A lot of us look at all that stuff like, oh, that's restrictive, or that's this, or oh, that's a little too much. But the reality is the people who accept that level of focus and discipline, they're the ones that have the most amount of freedom. Because they do the things that matter the most. And then after that, they have a whole bunch of freedom. Like Gary Keller, I've heard him say multiple times, and people at KWRI have validated it. He has said, people think I'm focused all day long, and I'm not. I get everything that I need to do done at the beginning of the day, and then I walk around KWRI and screw up everybody else's day, and shame on them for letting me do it. And when he says it, everybody else goes, yeah, that's true. And then I've seen him do it. And you're like, he really does do that, right? Cassie, what do you got?
I think one of the like trends that we saw throughout Family Reunion and through all the speakers that we've mentioned here today is focus. And my quote was from Rory Baden during the CEO Summit. And he said, when you have diluted focus, you will get diluted results. So I definitely feel like I've been making like every aspect of my life a priority, and that makes it more difficult to actually prioritize like the ones you want to focus on. So I've scheduled some time this week to like get all the thoughts, and like I've taken so many notes over like Family Reunion and all the classes that I've been attending the past few months. So it's time to like take a look at all of that and figure out where my focus actually needs to be.
Love it. Love it. David.
Greetings. All right, I'll try to let my ADHD be a little focused here. Also went to that same thing that Lucy had, and it was just really powerful to see these mega people talking about with whatever spectrum, OCD, ADHD, all these types of challenges that they struggle with, that they stopped feeling I'm not enough to I am more than enough. Again, like Lucy had said, like a superpower. So I need to really stop worrying that I'm a little different, right, than other people. And it's all good. Embrace that. One of the challenges I had, for some silly reason, I thought it would be just so that Lindsay could find me easier. I wore like what looked like a Burger King crown from Excalibur Hotel.
Okay,
And
now I know why. It
I
didn't
went
go
with-
unnoticed, but I wasn't sure the motivation behind it. Okay, that makes
Well,
sense. Just
it
look
was
for the
just
crown. Got it.
by accident, right? And then people would even ask me, so what are you the king of? I'm like, I don't know. Like I was apologetic for a couple days until finally on like the third day said, I'm the king of connections. I'm so glad you said something. Yeah, let's exchange information. Like I don't have to impress everybody, right? But if 1 out of 10 people like catches my eye or smiles, those are the people I want to work with. I don't have to work with a grumpy fuss budget person who's like doing their own thing. I had one lady stare me down like I owed her money, and I pissed off, I kicked her kitten or something. Like it's all good. Maybe she had a bad day. Who knows what? It's all good.
I mean, here's the reality. Everybody has to know you cannot escape judgment. Period. Like if you, and I'm not saying anybody here, but just let's imagine a human being who is lazy and doesn't work and, talks about doing things but never does them. They're going to be judged for being lazy and unmotivated and flip that coin over. And if you're a super focused person who gets up early and works out and like has goals in life and are always chasing the goals, you're gonna have people who are like, oh, so they're wound so tight. Why are they wound so tight? You are never escaping judgment. I don't care where on that spectrum you fall, someone is judging you. So if that's the case, who cares? Like, go do you and do it at the highest level and know that there's people that are going to embrace it. And there's people who are going to judge it, and those people who judge it in a negative way, they have no value in your world anyway. So you might as well just keep doing you. Keep going.
Agree. Hadn't seen Tony Robbins live in person since Lindsay and I had gone to an Unleash the Power Within event, maybe 8 years, 10 years ago. I don't even remember. It was a while ago. To no benefit of mine, but if somebody were interested in attending his event, I would suggest do it in person. Virtual is fine. It doesn't do anything for me, and there's no real potential for connecting, right? For sharing a business card, for synergy. He has an event coming up in November, which is in New Jersey. If anybody's interested in jumping on the group rate that they said they would extend us in our group, send me a message. Again, I don't get anything from it. It is $595. Both the ticket manager and also her husband assured me that anybody who signed up, if something changed, they would get a full refund up until easily like a month before, up until October. So again, if it's something you're interested in, let me know. But in person, it's amazing. And then the Mel Robbins, that 54321. I know other people have said that. What hit me a lot about that, I had seen her TED Talk, and it was really powerful seeing or hearing her share the story that led up to all of the challenges she was dealing with, struggles. A friend invited her to go give a speech, and she's like, fine, whatever. And it was that TED Talk.
Yeah.
And watching it, I'd already seen it. Watching it now with what she shared, and then also how she just threw out that 54321.
Yeah. That was the part that I thought was the most fascinating part of the story.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And
then just the live.
It all came from hardship, but at the end of the day, she went and did that speech on a whim. The way she tells the story is it sounded like a free vacation to me, and I had a lot to vacate from.
That's right.
But then she basically says that she was so nervous she went blank, and there was still like X number of minutes left, and then she just blurted out this 54321 thing out of pure nerves. And that has spiraled into a career as a speaker, as an author. Like, it was basically a terrified moment and an impulse that she just blurted a thing out. But right, what a huge lesson though. Like, she easily could have not gone and done that speech, and she never would have known the direction her life could have gone in. But she said yes to that thing, overcame her nerves to some degree. The way she described it, she was sweating and shaking and everything else when she was doing the talk. And it spawned into this amazing thing, which is crazy.
And she pointed out it actually not only impacted people professionally or emotionally, but literally saved several people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah, very powerful. Karina.
I didn't go to family reunion, but I just want to say that, when they're talking about people with ADHD, all of those little things. I mean, I'm severely dyslexic, severely, but being able to cope in the world with some sort of something that's dysfunctional or that somebody else doesn't have, it just gives you more tenacity, and you look at life very differently. And that's kind of what sets you apart. And if you can take that, what sets you apart, and make it into something great, then that's when, you can like really send yourself forward. Trust me.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to the hard thing. Like, it can be hard to overcome that, yet having to overcome it creates a stronger human, right? Because they had to do what everybody else does, but they had to do it with an additional challenge or learn. Maybe not even challenge. They had to figure out how to do it different than everybody else, right? And that's create strength.
Yeah, there's nobody else. There's nobody who can give you the directions on how to do it. Only you, and you alone, can do it. And then the fact that you were able to, you know, surpass this one little thing, then, you know, it just makes things
Yeah.
better for you.
Love it. So it's so awesome, like, all of us being here, for everybody who had the opportunity to go to family reunion and be around the energy of 16,000 people who had the opportunity to plug in all these communities. I think somebody did say it, at family reunion, that during war times, we need more battle buddies than ever before. Right? So the harder things are, the more important it is to surround ourselves with like-minded people. And we have a pretty amazing ecosystem to be able to do that both at scale and in small groups. And in times like this, I would just encourage everybody to lean in, because we get a lot further, a lot faster, and have a lot more fun when we do it with our battle buddies.